We have come to realize that the greatest attack that has ever been launched against freedom of the individual is nearer the Americas than ever before.
With war spreading in Europe in late 1939, President Roosevelt led a much-needed U.S. defense buildup, persuading the American public with speeches that remain stirring to this day.
To meet that attack, we must prepare beforehand, for the simple reason that preparing later may and probably would be too late.
It is a reality lost on Democrats today whose memory of FDR ends many years earlier with his New Deal domestic spending agenda.
I'm here in New Hampshire to talk about the budget I released today that would, what I think, help in a big way.
Nearly a century later, Joe Biden has proposed that in fiscal year 2025, the federal government would spend $7.3 trillion. It's a figure almost impossible to comprehend, and worse, neglects what should be his top priority now.
The president's defense budget includes only a 1% increase from last year. China is increasing military spending 7%. Is our 1% increase enough, General?
No, it's not even close. I mean, with inflation, it's actually a reduction because inflation is sitting around 3-4%.
Annual federal spending broke the $4 trillion barrier in the final years of Barack Obama's presidency. In 2020, under Donald Trump, bipartisan spending rocketed to $6.8 trillion, driven by what were supposed to be one-off outlays for the COVID-19 emergency. One can argue whether the pandemic's economic pain justified the $2 trillion hike. But with the release of Mr. Biden's $7 trillion budget, it's clear Team Biden considered COVID a crisis opportunity for the ages.
Can you tax your way into prosperity?
Well, look, I think deficits, we need to be on a fiscally sustainable path, and it's important to bring down deficits. It's also critically important to invest in the economy in ways that will be felt all through America.
The budget is being described as a campaign document. In other words, an election year effort to buy votes. And among the reasons Mr. Biden won't drop out, despite awful poll numbers, is his legacy, as outlined by Bernie Sanders, whose progressive movement worked with the then vice president in the run-up to the last election.
I think the compromise that they came up with, if implemented, will make Biden the most progressive president since FDR.
If there is one word associated with FDR's New Deal agenda, it was projects. Everything, housing, airports, hospitals, schools, became a project paid for with federal spending.
When New York starts erecting skyscrapers again, that's a sign that prosperity is on its way back in the United States. It's a long time since the sky's the limit was a phrase on every American's lips.
Back then, the thing common to most of the projects was cement. Today, it's the air all around us.
The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative, and the bill, as amended, is passed.
The 2022 Inflation Reduction Act, accurately described by the Progressive Economic Policy Institute as essentially a climate change bill, spent nearly $400 billion on renewable energy projects. The new budget proposes tens of billions more.
The bottom line to lower housing costs for good is to build, build, build.
But unlike Mr. Biden, FDR responded to the growing threats abroad with historic agreements, such as this one with the United Kingdom.
And here are the warships that have been traded with us. Built in the last war, but since reconditioned and rearmed, the 50 destroyers will prove invaluable. America gets the use of 8 strategic sites of key importance. In Newfoundland, Bermuda, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Antigua, St. Lucia, Trinidad, and British Guiana. So there's the new line of defense in the Atlantic, from Newfoundland to South America.
While FDR made preparations, the Biden Democrats, overwhelmingly dedicated to domestic spending only, will avoid rebuilding adequate defense, no matter the world's realities. That's why Mr. Biden has slow-walked armed support for Ukraine and is now going wobbly on Israel. There is a low ceiling on the party's support for national defense. FDR saw the future. Mr. Biden refuses to.
The Army is going to be the smallest it's been since prior to World War II. The Air Force is going to be at a 40-year low. The Navy is trying to get to 355 platforms as an objective state. This budget takes it down below 290. Makes no sense whatsoever the direction we're going in. We're going in the wrong direction, but our threats are increasing.
For nearly a century, the Democrats' policy of tax and spend has worked for them. One wonders if, like their leader, a strategy that dates back to the 1930s, with spending now heading north of $7 trillion, has arrived at a point of exhaustion with the American public.
The Biden campaign is losing constituencies that they normally rely upon because those are the constituents, Liz, that have been hardest hit by Bidenomics.